Hello guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Keeping Goals podcast. As ever, I am joined by Johnny Wong. Johnny, how are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. And you know what? It was so good to see that the podcast was well received on Apple, on Spotify, and even on YouTube as well. We seem to have got more engagement there on the podcast.
Yeah, good to see that a lot of you enjoyed the new concept, the new kind of format. And as we said in that episode last week, we wanted to be more consistent. So we're back with another episode, another podcast, and this time with a special guest, one of the many that we've promised you, a friend of Keeping Goals, but more importantly, someone that I'm sure most of you have seen all over social media, hundreds of thousands of followers, successful business owner, and as we said, friend of Keeping Goals. Thank you very much for joining us on our podcast. Ideal GK himself, Dec McCarthy. Dec, how are you?
I'm doing good, mate. Thanks for having me on. That's a tough intro to follow up on a podcast, but yeah, I appreciate it, mate. Yeah, all good.
Good. Well, Johnny, it's exciting for us to finally get Dec on. We mentioned that we did something with Keeping Goals last year with Dec. Really enjoyed going and visiting him down in Eastleigh, Southampton way, have a training session. But I think today will be quite fun to have a proper chat and see and show everyone else what Dec's like as a person, as a goalkeeper, and delve in a little bit into everything he's doing at the minute.
Yeah, you know what? We went down all the way to Southampton way, and it was a long drive. And because of the way it was, we didn't get too much time to spend with Dec. I'd have loved to have had a proper conversation with Dec. So I'm really chuffed that we have Dec on board with the podcast today, because it's going to be really nice to pick your brains. You know, we've clearly seen the football side of things, but I want to know more about Dec himself.
Yeah, no pressure.
No pressure at all. I mean, I think, well, we'll get straight stuck into it, but you just mentioned before we started recording, when you came home today, you had a few report cards from school. Yeah. We wanted to kind of go back and say, where did your kind of love of football start? Talk us through the beginning of your career as a player. Like you say, what were you like in school? Let's kind of hear a little bit more about where all that began.
Yeah, so as a youngster, I played just locally. I played for a couple clubs, again, close to me, one of which was Eastleigh. I was actually sort of chopping and changing between playing in goal and actually playing as a centre midfielder, which, again, I'm going to reveal a few things on this podcast, which will shock some people. But yeah, so I played for Eastleigh locally and went, again, just to school locally to me. But again, I was always driven towards football. Like even today, like I said, I got home from training this morning and my mum's going through like old boxes of like my reports in school and stuff. And it was so bad. Like listening to some of what my teachers would say about me, like with regards to not like bad attitude, but my general effort towards coursework and homework. And it was just, I mean, I failed everything, to be completely honest. Like, the only thing I passed in school was PE, and that don't even really count, does it?
So was that how it was kind of for you as a kid? You just enjoyed, obviously, football, your sport, and that was all you were kind of looking at?
Yeah, for me, it was just everything was football, try to be a pro footballer. Again, I played other sports with it, but it was always just like I remember my headmaster, when I picked up my GCSE results, he said, basically, you better be a footballer because otherwise I'm going to struggle. And you know, I've always sort of not took that personally, but I've always sort of had that to motivate me, sort of almost like a prove someone wrong kind of attitude. I mean, I played other sports, so like I love golf, I love cricket, I played like tennis, like any sport really. I'd do anything as long as it was sport orientated. And I probably could have done a bit more in school, but never felt like it was for me. I never really took interest in it, and that's not for everyone, but I never felt like I needed it. And yeah, you know, I'm pleased with how I'm doing now, and it's like a nice result for me to see that now. I mean, at the time I was probably naive and silly, but you know, I've not once gone into an interview or spoke to someone and they've said, "How did you do in your GCSEs?" And you know what I mean.
And I mean, we'll touch on it later, but I mean, you've hardly done bad off the pitch either. So for someone that was purely driven by football, it's amazing to see how you found different callings later on.
Yeah, exactly.
So when did you kind of make the step from, like you say, playing locally, playing for Eastleigh? And I mean, Eastleigh are a big club. Like I was kind of academy and youth team at Macclesfield, similar kind of level to Eastleigh.
Absolutely.
When did you make that kind of step from that type of football up to Bournemouth? And And what did you notice about doing that even as a youth player?
Yeah, so like I said, I was playing in goal and sort of like in goal and at the same time playing as a centre midfielder. And when you look at me now, obviously I'm a tall guy now, but everyone said to me I'll be too small to be a goalkeeper. So I pursued playing as a midfielder. And it was when I went into a more professional setup at Bournemouth, as I felt like, you know, I have to pick now, and I chose to be a midfielder. I'm not even sure if you know that, Con.
Wow,
but
I didn't.
No, so yes, this is what I'm saying. So I chose to be a centre midfielder, and that was
what age? What age did you make that decision?
Under 12s.
Wow.
So under 12s right up to under 18s. I got a year contract every single time, and then I got a 2-year scholarship as a midfielder.
Up to 18s, you were a centre midfielder?
Yeah. It's going to shock you when I tell you what happened.
Jeez.
Yeah. So I got a 2-year contract at Bournemouth as a scholarship player. Again, got paid a very little bit of money. You're shocked, aren't you? I can see it in your face.
I can't believe that. Sorry, carry on.
So anyway, but the thing is, I played at Bournemouth, and we went from obviously League 2 to League 1 to Championship, and eventually got into the Prem.
Yeah.
And the whole time I was there, and I was good. Like, I was a good centre midfielder. I was very short and weak, but I was a good centre midfielder, technically. And the whole time I wanted to be a goalkeeper, the entire time. And I had big disagreements with my dad, because my dad's very sport orientated, and he said, like, you know, you've got such a good chance of being, at the time, a Championship pro. And like I mentioned on a post last week, I didn't get offered a pro contract at Bournemouth. And then it was at that point when I said, you know, I don't enjoy playing centre mid. I played non-league for a bit. And it was at that point I decided I'm going all in on goalkeeping.
Wow.
I mean, we're going to go completely off the question. Sorry, Johnny, because there's so much stuff that I want to pick up on from within that answer. Because, I mean, first of all, when you said, I played centre midfield, I played in goal, immediately I was like, brilliant. Yeah. I was the same when I was a kid. And playing outfield gave me so many kind of technical advantages within my goalkeeping.
Of course.
But I started playing solely in goal, probably under 12s. But at that point, you made the decision to play solely outfield.
Yeah. Even under 12s, like you say, under 12s is late. That's late. But I was more like under 18s.
That is unbelievable.
You know
sorry, Johnny, go on.
What I find quite interesting, what I find really interesting about this, and it's, I don't know, I guess it's academies and at this kind of level of at this age, I find it really odd, because I guess the sports that I've played, I've always been playing different positions all the way through kind of whatever career. I mean, I played up to regional level in a number of sports, but I was playing it, you know, right mid for hockey. I was playing centre back. I was playing when I was playing rugby, I was playing fly half, I was playing scrum half, I was playing winger. I just wonder, like, from your guys' perspective, you both have had different positions. Obviously, Con, you said there yourself, you played centre mid. Dec, you played centre mid all the way up into 18 before you changed. How much of the extra skill set that you gain from playing in different positions are you missing out on if you do just narrow down and make a choice at the age of 12 or even younger?
100%. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think especially the way the modern goalkeeper's going now, if we're talking about football, the skill set I picked up from being an academy midfielder is I think why I'm so good with my feet now. And you look at Con at under 12. Con's the most ambidextrous goalkeeper I've seen. Like, his left foot is quite literally as good as his right foot. So I think, again, that comes with hard work, but that skill set of naturally when you're younger and you're using it over and over again because you have to, it pays dividends further down the line when you, again, if you make that transition. I think it's so important. You look at Edison now, and just generally all the top keepers now have to be able to play with their feet.
And I think that's probably one difference with the academy structure in the UK. I'm sure it's changing now, but obviously when we were in that stage of our careers, compared with playing in Germany or playing abroad in Europe, I think from what I've read and what I've heard from speaking to people, they're a little bit more open to you playing in those different positions up until a later age where you're able to learn the benefits and the skills associated with each of those positions, even goalkeeper to outfielder. And I think, I mean, Dec, you were probably defining that long before it even happened in the UK, but having that is a massive part of, like you say, the development. And I think as a player, as Dec says, his distribution is unbelievable. And I was literally going to ask a question about did the kind of outfield work contribute to that, but I had no idea that it was until that late in your career. So is what I probably want to ask is, you mentioned that through 12s to 18s, you wanted to be a goalkeeper, even though you were playing at such a high level as a centre midfielder. Was that something which you felt inhibited because of the level you were at, and you weren't able to make it into transition into where you actually wanted to be playing because you were playing at such a high level and there was a pressure to continue that pathway?
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, obviously when you're growing up and you've got mum and dad there watching you playing, of course, I think I cared more about what my dad thought than I ever did any coach who I had. I had some great coaches along the way, so I felt probably more pressure from a family perspective than I did being at pro club. Bournemouth was a great club and still are an excellent club, but I always felt the real pressure for me was to keep mum and dad happy. So if it were I had bad disagreements with dad saying, like, under 14s, I just got a new contract at Bournemouth, and I'd be like, I don't want it. Like, I want to play in goal. And it was only when I didn't get a pro contract, we really came to an agreement, and he said, fair enough, go all in. And now I look now and, like, I probably think, had I done it, again, I wouldn't have done it too soon, but had I done it at, say, 15, 16s, I think I would have had a better chance of, and I've still got a good chance, but a better chance of being a pro right now.
Do you think you would have had a different game as a goalkeeper, comparing your game now with the pathway that you had, if you had done that earlier? Would you not have had the distribution skills that you have, for example, or the concept of the position? Do you think there were some advantages from almost staying that long?
Yeah, I absolutely do. In terms of playing out distribution, like the footwork, technical side of it, I think I'm probably as good as I can be because I stayed in it so late. Having said that, I felt like when I went all in on goalkeeping, I was playing catch up. So if you look at, I don't know if you have, but if you look at when I first started Ideal Goalkeeper, again, I was so raw. I was so, like athletic, but technically not very good goalkeeper. And I'm open to saying that. I don't mind saying that. I studied it watching England goalkeeper training. I actually modelled Jack Butland. Watching Jack Butland play for me is like therapeutic. I'd watch it and think, like, I want to look like that. When you know what I mean? I want to be that goalkeeper. I want to be technically sound, not just really athletic. So yeah, sorry, gone off a bit. But back to your question. Yeah, I absolutely do think, had I done it a little bit sooner, perhaps I would have been a more traditional looking goalkeeper, as opposed to right now, I look at myself like a more modern keeper.
So in terms of, sorry, one last thing on this. When you said you then didn't receive the professional contract, you mentioned that you played in non-league for a little bit of time. Was that as an outfield player? Was that as a goalkeeper?
No.
How did you kind of start to rebuild that from there?
Yeah, so I was obviously earning a little bit of money through Bournemouth. Again, I'm sure you understand, a scholarship wage is not big money. It's quite literally pocket money. Yeah. So I went from that to playing non-league football with Gosport Borough Conference. But at the time, they were Conference South. So I played in the Conference South as a centre midfielder. I actually sat on the bench in the conference as a centre midfielder for Salisbury. It's crazy, isn't it? Like, people don't know this, so it'd be a good podcast to listen to. But
it's unbelievable.
It's crazy. So, but again, I never loved it. I never loved playing centre midfield. And for me, it's like, if I advise anyone, so many people message me now, and I'm sure you get it too, saying I'm an outfield player and I'd love to be a goalkeeper. And I don't say I've not been doing it long, but I say, just do it. Like, if it's what you love, don't worry too much about the result at the end. Just do what you love doing. So anyway, I played non-league for about a season-ish, end of the season with Gosport. I took half a year out because I couldn't stand it, hated football, wasn't interested, didn't kick a ball for 6 months. And then it was at that point when I was like, right, I'm not interested. It's done with Bournemouth, and I want to go all in on goalkeeping. And for me, like, in the beginning, it was a case of catch up. Like, if you ever speak to Ben and ask Ben what it was like I would train 5 days a week with Ben, just trying to perfect the side I didn't have, which was being a technically good keeper. Obviously, that's drummed into you. You're a very, very good keeper. I had to catch up. I had to. And if you go back, you probably go back after this podcast and you'll watch and you'll go, oh yeah, because you'll see the first videos and think, that's a completely different guy. He doesn't look like he's played in goal for his whole life. Whereas I think right now I'm respected and I look like I look like I've been a keeper since I started playing football. So yeah,
And
I work hard.
that comes from your hard work at it, like you
Absolutely,
say.
yeah.
And that is, if that's not a beacon of hope almost for keepers that are late developers in whatever way, be that transferring from a different position, transferring from a different sport, smaller keepers, really tall keepers, whatever reason, I think that is a huge example of dedicating yourself to what you want to achieve, regardless of all the uncontrollables, and focusing solely on the things that you can work on. So massive respect for that, Dec. That's huge.
Thanks, mate. But that's I always predict. You know, they do like height predictions and stuff. You know, when you're younger, I wasn't even predicted to reach like 5'9", 5'8". I was tiny, smallest in my year, smallest in my team. So I was like, right, I better be a midfielder. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I get away with that, but you know, I shot up, and again, you like I watched your live the other day, and you made some brilliant points about height and goalkeeping, and there's advantages and disadvantages, and I absolutely agree. It would be so easy for me, I'm 6'3". It'd be so easy for me to say, yeah, you have to be tall. You do not have to be tall. Absolutely not. But I was younger, so, I had a lot to think about. I was trying to keep my dad happy.
Where did Ideal GK come about from then? Because obviously you decided at 18, now I'm going to be a goalkeeper. This is what I wanted to do for a long time. How come you decided to all of a sudden make content with it as well?
So, again, my current business partner, Ben, you both met Ben, who's actually Ideal player, who actually, when we first met, was Striker FC, another Instagram page. He would train at the same facility I would train, and he was filming content, and he literally just, like, he was at one end of the pitch and I was at the other end of the pitch. Quite a weird story, actually. He was at one end and I was at the other end. He was filming and I was just training. And he had like new boots on, these new Predators, and I was just like, oh, I'm going to ask where he got them. So I went over to him and started speaking to him, and he was like, do you want to be in a video? And I was like, yeah, sure. And he was like, where do you play? And I was like, so again, at this point, he had like 80K or 90K followers, I think, on Instagram. He was like, where do you play? And I was like, Goalkeeper. So I ended up jumping in goal. And again, I'll be able to find that video and show you that. But I wasn't good. But and I said, I'd love to do something like that. I'd love to start making content and have a page and like, that sounds really exciting. And it genuinely was like a passion. I thought, like, that's absolutely what I'd love to do. Like, how amazing would that be? If you can generate a way of earning money and sustain it, and that would be brilliant. So I worked with Ben for a little while while he was at Striker FC. Again, not earned or anything. I just jumped in on videos. Yeah. And I said to him, like, I want to start a page. Like, it was out of nowhere. It was quite literally like, I want to start a page. Like, sounded quite silly. And he was like, yeah, you should do it. Whatever. Ben's a great guy. He said, you should do it. And I was like, yeah, okay. So I went home. I didn't really give it any thought. I've been stuck with that name ever since. Like, I didn't really think about it. I just said, I just thought, oh, all right, Ideal Goalkeeping. Like, I went around in circles with some other stuff, and that was it. Like, I would love to be able to say I really put loads of thought into it and I really planned it, but I didn't at all. I literally just done it. I think I hit some side volleys and then uploaded, and from there it was like I knew I had to keep posting. And yeah, so I think a lot of credit should go to Ben in terms of starting that page, because if anything, he inspired me to do it, because I saw what he was doing. So but I didn't put loads of thought into it. A lot of people would probably think that must have took some graft, but in reality I was just like, oh, I want to do it, I'm doing it. Like,
well, there's two things automatically that I pick up from straight away with that. The first, like you say, you didn't paralyze yourself by overthinking it. You didn't think, oh, I've got to come up with the best name in the world, or I've got to design the best videos in the world. You literally just, take my camera, take my phone, whatever I do, and just start. Because I'm sure you get so many people, same as me, saying, oh, how do I start my Instagram page? How do I start my YouTube channel? Yeah. Like, what do I do? So the fact that you kind of just was like, well, as is becoming a theme, just went, well, this is what I want to do, and I'm going to go for it, and I'm just going to start at the very beginning.
Yeah, exactly, the beginning. That's how I always look at it. Like, when I speak to Ben and stuff, I'd say, like, back in the beginning, and it's not like the beginning, like, oh, there was loads of planning. It was just like, just quite literally went home, saw my missus, and said, oh, I'm going to do this now. And she was like, oh, cool, nice. That was it. And then, I started putting out, I think my content changed, if I'm being totally honest. Do you want me to talk about that?
Yeah, of course.
Sure. Yeah. So I think in the beginning, where I worked with Ben, who's very, he won't mind me saying this, very entertainment based,
Yeah.
I felt like I naturally just fed off him, and I began with that entertainment route where it was just high flying saves and everything. But I gradually moved away from that. It didn't really take too long, but my entertainment value went down, and I started going more towards goalkeeping, technically. But then I found the perfect thing for me was the balance, where I found having it filmed like it was entertaining, but the reality is I'm still just doing really good training, like relevant training. But people don't understand, and I'm sure you get it too, there has to be an element of entertainment to what you put out if it's providing you an income.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, it's a hot topic, obviously, within the goalkeeping online community. And I mean, I've obviously been following you for a very long time from the very beginning. And I think even I noticed that change.
Yeah.
And putting that into perspective with what I now know from what you said earlier, I think that was a very, very, I don't know if you'd have thought about it in this way, but a very clever move in the fact that I'm sure people will go back and look now, but now where you begin to actually start to put in proper training sessions, proper drills, which are improving you as a goalkeeper, not only is that providing value to the people that are watching it and want to improve as goalkeepers, at the time, that is what is making you a better goalkeeper, because you're starting from, like you say, nearly from scratch.
It was like a process. It was like starting from zero, and it was like, and it was literally zero. I played a tiny bit when I was like 10 or 11 before I signed with Bournemouth, and it was like, what I'm putting out, people have no idea. I've never done it. Like, this is not me regularly. I'm not regularly training.
Yeah.
It was when I started the page is when I was like, right, I'm training 5 days a week until I look like Conor O'Keefe. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? Like, until I'm in. Does that make sense though?
100%. 100%. I don't think you said my name at the time, but I appreciate you adding it now.
But at the time, I was like, I have to, for myself, I have to be a respected keeper, because even I found a little bit, I had a lot of interest from local clubs, and everyone always knew me as a good midfielder. I remember, like, you know, like Conference South Club saying, like, do you want to come play for us? And they'd be like, we want you as a midfielder. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing it again. I'm not doing that again. Like, I'm not interested. So again, like you said, I was quite literally improving myself from the start of this page. The second I started it was the second I basically was like, I'm going all in and I'm training to be a proper keeper. I'm not just going to be entertaining because I can dive high. That's crap. And again, but that all changed as well. Like, technically I became good at diving, and like now, if you didn't know that, you probably thought I'd been in goal forever. So
yeah, 100%.
There you go.
And like you say, I think that was a brilliant decision, hindsight or not, in the fact that you've brought the proper value that should be brought. Entertainment, I will never critique anyone for entertaining people. Everyone needs entertainment, whatever form you do it in. 100% hands off to you. And I think the fact that you've been very clear with the goalkeeping community that you can entertain in the same way that you can provide value and help people to get better as goalkeepers means you're covering as many bases as possible. And for someone like yourself who is making a living from doing that, that is, I think, what the rest of the goalkeeping community really respects, that you do it in that kind of way. And then the fact that it helps you develop as a goalkeeper is just like the cherry on top of all that.
I wonder if I could ask you a little bit about the content side of things, because I know you touched upon it there. It's like a lot of people will say, you know, how did you get into it? Why are you doing this type of thing? We've not seen it before. When it came to kind of the motivation and the regular posting, like you were saying, what was kind of the motivation to post all the time? You made this page, you just came back, you did it on a whim, you've got no real pressure to post on this page. What was it that was like, right, I'm going to do it, I'm just going to post, I'm going to post regular now? And
it was just, I love goalkeeping. Like, I wish there was a better statement, but it was literally like, you ask Ben, like, I mean, you're not going to go and ask Ben, but if you ask Ben, he'd say the same thing. Like, I just became like addicted to getting better at improving. And if I'm filming that journey, then naturally I've got enough to post all the time. And a lot of people would think, and I'm sure you get this, Con, especially with YouTube as well, they probably like have a bad perception of what we do. And like, I've had a lot of people who probably think I'm absolutely minted. And it's like, I didn't earn a penny. Like, and again, this is another part, like, I didn't earn a penny through social media until probably a year and 3 months into it. And through that whole period, again, I'm like a young man, I need to go and earn money. I worked at a hospital. I worked at a local hospital to me. But yeah, I wasn't doing it for financial gain because there wasn't any. I wasn't doing it for sponsorships because there wasn't any. I wasn't doing it for free stuff because there wasn't any. I was doing it because I loved doing it and I loved improving. I like
preach
now.
it, mate. Preach it.
Yeah, exactly. But that's what it is. And I look back now and like I'm proud and I think what a great transition and what a cool story. Like when you look where I started and again working a normal job. I worked in a hospital, didn't earn much money, and I knew it wasn't for me and I wanted to do something else, and I found I absolutely loved what I do in social media. So that's the same thing. You probably get a similar thing, and it's like, why are you not playing for Besiktas? And it's like, well, that's fine, but like I probably like I weigh up now whether I'd even want to play professionally at a certain level. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, in terms of anything, any career goals or any kind of personal goals, you have to be quite careful about why you're beginning and what your why is. People talk about people's whys, and like you say, your why was to be getting better, and the fact that that process enabled you to create content consistently was a key factor in building a page. But the core was the fact that you loved getting better as a goalkeeper, and that was what you wanted to do. If your only motivation and your only drive is the number of followers or the amount of revenue or the sponsorship deals,
you'll give up. Stop.
You'll give up well before that even comes, because like you say, it took you a year and X months, but even that's quick. Like,
of course,
before we made any decent money out of YouTube, it was nearly 3 years. And I think the fact that your drive and your passion has to be the internal motivation, the thing that you can control, the joy that you get from seeing yourself getting better at something, that will fuel you 1,000 times further than any external motivation. So
100%.
Again, massive kudos for that, because that is the best way that you can fuel the type of stuff that you want to do. So I mean, even moving on, I was going to say, once you started to find a bit of traction, how did you feel about it? How did you feel about it becoming something bigger than just your personal project that you like to take videos of?
Yeah, so it was obviously exciting. I got some, again, as you know, in the social media world, it's like shares and stuff, and I got some good shares off some good pages and stuff. And I remember I went from like 0 to 5K followers pretty quickly, and I was like buzzing. And then I think it was probably a month or two period where everything just started going pretty quickly, and people started watching me more, and I was starting to have a reputation. But it was exciting. But at the same time, I don't like this. Some people have a mentality of entitlement where it's like, I've got 40K or I've got 20K followers. I should get paid this. I should get that. And for me, it was just never that. It was just like, oh, this is exciting. Like again, going back to my school stuff, any of the reports was like Dec's happy-go-lucky, just wants to enjoy what he does, like have a laugh, and that was it. So for me, it was never. I never looked and thought, oh, what am I going to get from this? It was just, I was excited. Like I was in different people's faces for watching me, but it wasn't, I didn't start the page to get 300K followers. I just started the page because that was my process. I just started it because I thought, Ben's filming, I may as well film it. We're here. I'll put it out. And
so when you start reaching those pretty high levels, because I mean, very few people get that type of following, even in the social media age, like you say, especially around a niche such as goalkeeping, which isn't mainstream in any sense. So inevitably that stuff will start to come. Like you say, sponsorship deals, you're wearing your Gymshark stuff now, like the Tango Squad stuff, the Soccer AM appearances. Like, I mean, obviously that's really exciting for a kid that's grown up loving football. But talk me through kind of which of those things did you enjoy? Have you got any stories from those things? Like, but at the same time, how did you feel now suddenly this is becoming your livelihood and your business, and you have to develop that side of the game, not just how can I improve my weak foot at training on Monday?
Yeah. So exactly. So for me, I wasn't very, I think probably the word is marketing orientated. If I would say anything, I wasn't like, like I wasn't, when I did the Tango Squad thing with Adidas, like I felt like the majority of that team were so used to that being on camera all the time, like big camera sets and going to different locations with the likes of Pogba and like I trained with Lucas Zidane's son, and to be honest, it might sound a little bit ungrateful, but it didn't interest me. Like to be completely honest, it just didn't. Like I've never been starstruck or really wow about anything. Like I've just wanted to enjoy myself. So there was some great experience. Obviously, I played at Old Trafford.
Yeah, talk to me about that. I'm a big United fan, so you lived out my dream. How was that?
Yeah, sorry about that. I played at Trafford, and again, like that was unbelievable experience. Like for me, I enjoy the experience more than I enjoy seeing people, if that makes sense. So we met some amazing people like along the way. Like Isco, I had Isco shooting at me and stuff, and that was fun. But for me, like even the Zidane thing, do you know Lucas Zidane? Zidane's the keeper. So he was at Real Madrid at the time, and like that was cool. I had a training session with him, and I was like, yeah, that's cool. But I was just more buzzing to just train. I was like, I'm just more buzzing to train at Real Madrid than I am to train with Lucas Zidane.
And did you have a little bit of I would have had a little bit of kind of competitive element in it, like, oh, what's he doing? How's he working? How can I get as good as him at that, and that kind of thing?
Yeah, 100%. So you obviously look at better keepers and you try to model on that. So training alongside someone like that, especially where I was at with my process, I wasn't the keeper I am now, and I wasn't even close. That was early on, and like naturally you watch them and you want to improve. You want to be just like them, and you want to compete. You don't want to look out your depth. Like you'd be the same as a competitor. No matter who you could be stood next to Edison, you're thinking, I'm going to try and be the best I can be, regardless if he's Edison and I'm Conor O'Keefe. It's that instinct to want to match or win. Like for me, I want to win. I want to be the best. So it's a process, and like you just have to enjoy it mainly, I always say, but you have to work hard.
Moving on to creating and finding your own business then with Links, where was the idea and where did that come from to start creating products, start this brand, and kind of where did that mindset come from business? Because you said that you weren't really marketing orientated or business orientated at school or anything like that. So
it wasn't even like I definitely should do this. It was like I was promoting gloves for a glove brand who I wore previous to Links. And I had quite a good relationship with the guys and stuff. And I would just promote their gloves. They'd supply me gloves throughout the month and stuff. And they said to me after about 6 months or so of doing it, they said, since I've started promoting their gloves, like they had doubled Instagram following and their sales had gone through the roof. So it was at that point where I was sat with Ben when I had this
worst thing they could have said.
Worst thing they could have said. And again, I'm not there thinking buzzing. I'm just there like, well, that's sort of a no-brainer. You shouldn't tell me that, because obviously anyone in their right mind is going to say, we need to make a product which, and I felt like I had good integrity with my followers, that I didn't wear 10 different brands. Same with you. You've never worn new gloves every single week. There's people on the platform who will do anything for a quick 500 quid or a quick bit of money. I had such good integrity that, and again, it's similar to the Gymshark thing, that they believed if I was wearing it, and this is what I believe, if I was wearing it, I actually liked it. I wasn't doing it for money, because I didn't work with a new brand every week. So I spoke to Ben, and we had numerous conversations previous to say like, oh, perhaps we should do something. We didn't know what. And then they told us that. And I was like, right, we should probably start making gloves. So we started Links again. That wasn't a rush. We knew that had to be calculated. Like, we went through manufacturers, samples, everything until I felt I was happy with the gloves I was genuinely wearing. Not, I'm going to put them out because I know I can make quick money. I'm not interested in that. There needs to be longevity.
And that's a risk, because that's a very different type of business to creating content, gaining sponsorship. That is establishing a product that you're investing your own money in. Like
supply chain.
You have to crack that at a lot of different levels. Like you say, the supply chain, getting your production in place, getting your distribution in place, having good customer relations. Because everyone thinks, oh, you just sell a glove. You've got people who need
Everything.
refunds. You've got people who need replacements. You got like
It's
suddenly
24/7.
you're creating a full-time job alongside everything what you're doing as well.
Exactly. It's 24/7, and it's not like, you know, those gloves, that initial batch, which again needed work, needed improving, because we're still learning. We weren't, when we started the project, we weren't business people. We learned, you know what I mean? I'd be lying if I said at 20, whatever I was, 21, 20, 22, I was really switched on and street smart, and I was so business. We had to learn that, you know, like, so again, that was an investment. You know, I don't have at the time, and even now, at the time anyway, I don't have loads and loads of money. So that whatever X amount to start a glove brand and to buy 250 pairs was coming from me working at the hospital. And for Ben at the time, whatever his job was at the time. So again, it's a risk. That could have been a few grand down the drain, and that would have been that, and we'd have gone, never mind, try again. But and like you said, it's not, you know, they don't land on our lap and they don't just get sold. You have 24/7. It's returns. It's everything. It's customer relations. It's dealing with a manufacturer. It's absolutely, you know, and that's something we had to learn. It's quite literally 24/7. Even now, it's 24/7. We run the company. For me and Ben, we pack gloves every day. We do absolutely everything. We run the company like it's the first day of us running the company. We do absolutely everything. You have to really believe in what you're doing. You have to be a part of what you're doing. And me and Ben, like, we pack gloves every day and we love it. Like, you know, you're with your mate. There's worse things to be doing than packing gloves. And then we'll go film content and everything else. But
so I guess this kind of ties in nicely with this next question that I'm going to ask you. Dec from school.
God.
Right?
Yeah.
And Dec now. You have now created your own brand, Lynx, right? All of these skills which potentially you could have learned from a younger age, what do you think you would have given yourself as a piece of advice for like the career path you've now created for yourself? What piece of advice would you have given yourself whilst you were growing up?
It's a great question. I don't know. I would love to say focus on like a business mindset, but you probably know yourself, that wasn't taught in school. No one taught you how to be a business person. No one taught you how to deal with tax, and no one taught you how to, you know, it was English, math, science, and PE for me. So I don't know. I'd love to, you know what I mean? I'd love to be able to say, think more about business and like creating that, but I don't feel like that would have been an option at the time.
The thing that I kind of pick up upon, and maybe I would have told myself, and you might agree, you might have told yourself this as well, is like, I probably would have told myself not to panic and not to worry too much about making real, like, calculated decisions at that age. Clearly, you know, we've all got to go through these decision making processes in life, and obviously our experiences lead to the decisions that we end up making. But you know, for me, I went from a very different like degree to what career I've chosen now. You made a decision to play centre midfield until you were 18, then decided it wasn't the right one for you. Conor's made many decisions about where he's going to play, and I feel like a lot of these decisions that we've all made with our careers, I would have told myself back then that it's not as big as a deal as we made it out to be when we were younger.
Yeah, like you say, when you're younger, it feels like life and death. You're like, oh my God, this has to be right, and I understand that. And I felt like that about deciding whether to pursue being a midfielder at a pro club or to pursue what I really loved. And it was life and death when reality is like, it doesn't have to be so calculated. Like you say, it's like, it's easy to say now, but you'd love to be able to say, look, don't stress. And if you knew me when I was younger, and what all my teachers would have said about me is, Dec's not stressed. Like he doesn't mind. He'll be happy go lucky and enjoy what he does. But people didn't know my serious side was the sport. Like that was where I was having deep conversations with family and saying, like, you know, this has to be right, when in reality it doesn't have to be right. Like it can be, you're going to make mistakes, it can be completely wrong, and you live and learn. But I totally agree. If you can go back and I could tell me at under 12 signing for Bournemouth, if you don't get a pro, if you get released tomorrow, don't worry about it. It'd be fine. Like, I'd love that.
Yeah.
So
I think
sorry, Johnny, go on.
No, I was just going to say, I think for everyone who is in a similar situation, or has decided that they wanted to pursue a career in football as a player, you've shown from your experiences that there are other options if the door gets closed on you to make a career for yourself in the industry that you love. And your industry that you love is football, and you've done everything that you could do to create a career path for yourself in football, and one that, quite frankly, when you were 12 years old, didn't exist,
100%.
So, who knows what's going to happen in, let's say, 10 years time for whoever's watching this podcast now. We know that there are going to be careers that don't exist currently in whatever industry that you want to do, whether that's football or whatever else it is. So
yeah, I totally agree, mate. And that's like Conor said earlier about the post I put out last week, and that's sort of where I was heading with saying, like, if you feel like you have no direction, or you feel like you're a little bit lost, and I did, like, I was completely lost, and I'm not one to get down. I'm very positive, but it was more of a trying to inspire people to not to panic, basically, just relax. And yeah, like, I think it's good. You always need people to lean on, and you need role models in your lives and good advice from people. And again, if anyone ever asks me for advice, it's always the same thing. It's just, as long as you enjoy it, like, everything else will take care of itself. Like, it's same like now with that post, people had like I put that post out, and people sort of, I felt like they got the wrong idea. I wasn't trying to say, oh, gutted, I didn't get a pro contract. It was more like, it doesn't matter. This is the proof it doesn't matter. Like,
and that's what I got from it. I think I really enjoyed it because it showed everyone who you are as a person. And I think what you've said within the last hour is exactly the same. The fact that you can start from scratch and build yourself up to go wherever you want to go and deal with whatever setback occurs based on your own determination and your own processes.
Yeah,
that's motivation for anyone in any walk of life. So huge credit to you. Looking forward, what kind of aims and goals do you have for yourself in the future, both as a person, Dec the keeper, Ideal GK, Links Goalkeeping?
Everything.
What excites you about moving forward with everything?
Yeah, so I wasn't a business person, and when I started the page, I've become more of a business orientated person due to having a company. We want to, and Ben will have the same goal. We want to grow Links Goalkeeping to be, one of the top gloves on the market, one of the most respected, and that for us, when a brand comes from an influencer, which you'll know, it's hard to get that credibility because you don't have pros in your gloves from day one. So we want to push the gloves into the Football League. We've got 4 or 5 pros now, which we do, which is fantastic. But we want to push Links Goalkeeping to be one of the best gloves on the market, if not the best, which again is optimistic, but then I just don't see why not. So that's from the Links perspective. Now, for me personally, I want to grow my page and my own personal profile to the maximum it can be, and obviously that doesn't come overnight. Again, like you say, outside of the page, me as a person, trying to move out. I've got a missus, you've got a missus, obviously. We're trying to get a deposit together to move out and again explore that next chapter of our lives. And again, I get this question a lot, like, why don't you try and be a pro? Why don't you go pro? Why don't you do all this and whatever? And it's like, if I do, great. If I don't, great. It doesn't really make no odds. And the reason that is because I'm happy. If I were really, God, I need to be a pro, I really want to be a pro, and I believe if I really put all my effort into it, I would be. But the reality is, if I'm happy, then I'm not gonna take for granted where I am, like right now.
That has to be the key for everything, that you're happy in what you're doing and you're happy with what you're chasing. And that can be fluid, that can change. You're still such a young man that you still have plenty of time to change a million times what you want to do and what you want to focus on. I mean, even from a goalkeeping point of view, do you still have that drive to keep learning different things to keep improving in that sense?
100%. Like my drive for goalkeeping hasn't changed. Like since day one, I've wanted to get better and better every day. And like when we trained with Harry, that's always a good benchmark for me. I always think like, he's a pro. He's a pro at Luton, and I want to. I'm not saying I want to be a pro at Luton. I'm just saying I want to be on that same sort of technical ability. I want to be on that same sort of physical ability. So the drive doesn't change in terms of improving. But I think you'll know yourself, that's drummed into you. Whether you really want it, that's just you, isn't it? Like, that's down to you. And again, you're a great example of that. Although with that as well, like, you might have noticed again, like I want to bring out a more of a personal side to me with my followers. And I changed my page logo to a picture of me because I felt like it was a more of a personal feel between me and my followers. And yeah, I would like people to see more of Dec as a person as opposed to just a guy between the sticks.
Well, this podcast will definitely help,
what a great
mate.
start.
I'm not so bad.
So much to take from this podcast about Dec.
Okay, so rounding off the podcast, a couple of fun questions which will be quite interesting for you. We asked you a little bit before, so you've had a little bit of a chance to think of them. But question number one, from the goalkeeping perspective, if you could pick 3 other goalkeepers alongside yourself to share an ideal GK training session with, which 3 would you pick, and why would you pick each one?
I would pick Edison, just because right now he's just like probably my favourite keeper in the Premier League at the moment. Just unbelievable talent, and I love his attitude, and I love how he is, like his presence in the goal. Everything he does as a goalkeeper is just like is something I would model myself on. Like I'd love to be like. So yeah, Edison, and obviously he's just super cool, and he's just
very cool.
He's just quality. Another keeper. Is it has to be right now, present?
No, you can have past if you want.
Past, yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm not. I'm just thinking. I'm just wondering anyway.
Or future ones.
Harry Eichstätt. No, I'm joking. No, I love Harry. Again, Harry was a great experience for me to train alongside Harry and stuff. So yeah,
same for me when we came and trained with you.
Yeah, unbelievable. Top keeper. Ben Foster, again. I mean, it helps he follows me. That's class. But at the same time, been watching Ben Foster feels like forever now, and just such an absolute legend. Like proper down to earth, normal bloke, and just again unbelievable talent in goal. So yeah, Ben Foster, Edison. Third one.
If he doesn't say Conor O'Keefe, this podcast isn't going out.
Conor O'Keefe and Harry Eichstätt were the first choices, but we've already done it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you can chop that. Put you back at the front. Bernd Leno for sure. Like, again, I love his style of goalkeeping. I love that. Again, obviously, I'm an Arsenal fan. He plays for Arsenal. That helps. But it's as a with how Arsenal are at the moment, as a keeper in a team like that, it's a great opportunity to look great, but at the same time, it's a great opportunity to look awful. And he's been so good for us. Again, from a fan's perspective, he's been amazing for us. So yeah, I'd say Leno, Edison, and Ben Foster would be my 3 right now.
All 3 of them probably follow you on Instagram, so it's probably doable that we could get that session going.
Why don't you just drop them a message? Get it sorted.
Yeah, Leno doesn't follow me.
I mean, and on Ben Foster, how do you feel about seeing the content that he's making? Because I absolutely love it. I think.
Oh, I love it.
From people like me and you who enjoy the content side of things too, to see someone at that level, that type of goalkeeper, and see what they're like off the pitch too, because he's a top guy as well as being a world-class goalkeeper.
He's absolutely unbelievable, because he had followed me and then he messaged me. And then it felt like a couple of days later, he gave me a ring, and he's just the most normal person ever, just funny. And you get that, like you can tell when you watch his content, is absolutely who he is. He's just a proper quality guy.
So last question, Dec, to round it out. Who are the 3 people that you think you've learned from or followed closely within the last year, on or off the pitch?
I don't know. I wouldn't say in the last year my dad, but then again, growing up, I think a lot of me is a lot of my dad is in me. So I feel like I've took so much of more like his attitude and his determination for happiness more so than success, because I think it's the same thing, into what I do. And again, in terms of the business side of things, like absolutely, my dad growing up had multiple businesses and a sportsman himself. So again, I wouldn't say that's in the last year, but I think he's had a ginormous effect on how I am now as a person and as a business owner. And without being cringe, but I would say Ben, Ben, my business partner, socially learned a lot from him because he was doing it before I was. And I think me and Ben have grew together as, again, directors of the company. I think we've grew massively from like a street perspective in terms of dealing with manufacturers and everything else. But yeah, you know, I don't want to sound too cringe and say Ben, because he'll think, you know, but at the same time, like, you learn a lot from someone you're close with. So
yeah, and you can't do it on your own.
You can't.
Because you only see through one pair of eyes. I think having someone that you trust. I mean, I hope Johnny will say the same, but I feel the same in what we've done with Johnny in terms of having someone else that you can talk to, someone else that you can think about things with, someone else to have a different opinion. It's very, very valuable, and I think it's a skill to open yourself up to receive that, because some people can be quite protective about what they do and just solely do it themselves.
Yeah, 100%. And then obviously you've got close friends around you. Like, I've got plenty of close friends. Like, I'm not going to reel off loads of names, but plenty of close friends you go to and you speak to and you trust you'll get good advice from. And I'm fortunate enough to have plenty of close friends who I genuinely trust. But then again, one more thing I would say, who I've learned probably the most from on the pitch since the last year, would be Harry, to be fair. Harry, I said I train with him very, very regularly. Obviously, we're in lockdown, but in terms of learning and training with Harry, I feel like he's just always been almost like not idol, because he'd love that. I wouldn't tell him that, but like always been
we'll cut that out.
like a benchmark and a real goal for me to be more like Harry on the pitch, because like, you know yourself, Harry's an absolute professional, like a unbelievable keeper, but again, doesn't take the sport for granted. He's just an absolute professional in what he does. So yeah, Harry, you're getting there. He'll be pleased with that.
Well, I want to say a huge thank you for coming on.
Yeah,
a huge thank you for the amount of value that you've brought with it, because it's inspired me, and I know it will inspire hundreds of other people, thousands even, at different places in their careers, goalkeepers or not. So no, Dec, really do appreciate you spending the time with us, and thank you for everything you've given with it as well.
No problem. I've really enjoyed it. We'll do it again.
Yeah, 100%. And hopefully when lockdown's done, we can get another session going, because that's
100%. 100%, mate. Yeah, well up for it.
So, unbelievable podcast with Dec. Really, really enjoyed that. I did not expect what was coming in terms of what he spoke about, but I'm really, really glad he did. Just the whole process of chasing what makes you happy and just starting without overthinking the process, just beginning it, be that him starting in goal or starting Ideal GK. All of it was, I want to do this will make me happy, and I don't really care about the outcome. I'm just going to keep going as best as I can towards it.
Yeah, it was fantastic to hear his story, and I think, you know, a lot of his a lot of the decisions that he's had to make, and I kind of see reflections and glimpses of kind of where we've been as well. You know, there's a lot of that story which is really like nice to hear, that other people have been through, you know, difficulties and come through, and they've done things because they want to, you know. It's just like us, you know, we're making videos for the sake of us wanting to make videos, and I love that Dec has got that ethos about him as well.
And I mean, even as a young man, like, I asked him off the recording how old he was. He's only 22. And if you think about what he told us, 23, and think about what he's talking about in terms of only really starting again, playing in goal 19, 20, and you think, for someone, I'm so chuffed for him that it's gone so well, but I think it should provide a lot of inspiration to people all over the globe in whatever they're chasing, that you can never say, oh, it's too late, or you can never say, oh, I would love to start this, but, because if you do, who's to say, okay, you might not go where you want it to go, but it might, like you said, create a whole career or a whole livelihood or a whole life within something that you love doing. And then if you can't define that as successful, I don't think there's any other definition for me. As we've been trying to do with each episode of the podcast, we're going to try and end with a quick question left on the most recent episode of Keeping Goals, which goes live every Sunday, 11 a.m. UK time on YouTube, as you guys know. And today's question comes from Ben Young. Ben Young asked, what's the favourite country you've ever played in, and which country would you like to play in and why? So I think my favourite country so far has been Sweden, just because of how much we've enjoyed everything that's happening with PTA and the whole process with that. I'd be interested to hear where you'd like to potentially go with Keeping Goals, Johnny. But I think I'd love to play back in England again, but I'd also love to play somewhere completely different. I'd love to play in Canada or America or Australia or New Zealand and see a different continental side of the game. We've played in different European countries so far, but I think it'd be amazing to see football somewhere else completely. I don't know what you think with it.
Yeah, you know what? I was when I read this question, I was sort of thinking like, well, if I was to think about where I've played in different countries, the only other country that I've played in is Argentina. And then I thought, can you imagine a Keeping Goals season in Argentina, playing for the Boca Juniors
in a proper big derby game?
Yeah, against River Plate.
River Plate Boca. Ooh. I think that would be, yeah.
When I was there in Argentina, that derby game was on the night before we got to Buenos Aires, and it was incredible to see on TV and everything. And a season in Argentina. Well, you speak Spanish, Con. Let's go.
You never know. And I mean, if you can deal with that atmosphere, nothing will ever scare
Nothing's
you
gonna
ever
phase
again.
You, is it? Nothing's going to phase you.
But thank you very much for listening, guys. Really do appreciate you listening to today's episode of the podcast. If you have any questions that you'd like us to answer, feel free to leave them as a comment on the latest episode of Keeping Goals. Also, make sure you go and give Dec a follow if you don't already. I'm sure most of you do, both on Instagram. He also has a new YouTube channel as well. So head across, subscribe on that. But thank you very much, Johnny. Really enjoyed it. If you could leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, that'd be great. And subscribe on Spotify and on YouTube as well. But thank you very much for listening, guys. We will see you in the next episode. Take care. Look after yourselves. Keep chasing improvement. And we'll speak to you in a bit.